Pocket 4, Pocket 3 and the iPhone 17 Pro. So which one of these have the best video quality? How do they perform at night? What are the pros and cons and some of the new features? And is it even worth upgrading to the Pocket 3? My name is George, where I try to answer all your tech questions through real life usage. Let's get on to it.
Je suis sexy, genre je sais pas. Moi dans l'avion direct, aéro.
I'm sure most of you got into the Pocket 3 and looking for the Pocket 4 is because it's ease of use. In fact, right now, this is being shot by my mother and it's her first time using the Pocket 4. The biggest upgrade is the new 1-inch sensor. It's able to upgrade from 9 megapixels to the currently 37. You can shoot now 4K in 240 FPS and true log, although there are some limitations. The log can only be shot at 4K 60 FPS and the 240 frame can only be shot in normal mode and it has a 1:1 crop. You can see in the videos that D-Log has better dynamic range. It retains the highlights better while still maintaining the shadows. In fact, there's 14 stops in the new Pocket 4. But what happens when you bring Apple Log into the picture? Personally, I think Apple still produce a better video quality, a better color recognition, not by a lot, but I still prefer the look of the Apple over the Pocket 4. I still prefer the highlight roll-off on the Apple Log, but the P4 is very close behind. It protects the highlights a lot better versus the P3. There's also more background blur on the Apple Log versus the Pocket 4. That's a personal preference, but the Pocket 4 has improved a lot in image quality versus the P3. Now, if you're shooting in log, Apple can shoot up to 120 FPS in the Blackmagic cam, while the Pocket 4 can only shoot up to 60 FPS. But it's not all downhill. The Pocket 4 and Pocket 3 does have a advantage by having a physical gimbal versus the in-body stabilization on the iPhone. It doesn't require cropping, so you can use the full 20mm wide lens on the Pocket 3 and 4, especially given it has a screen. This makes selfie vlogs and framing a lot easier. Stabilization on the 3 looks relatively the same. Apple has great stabilization, so does the Pockets 3 and 4. I'm now shooting at 2x lossless zoom at the same distance using the Pocket 4. This is achievable using a crop on the 37 megapixel sensor. The Pocket 4 has 4x zoom versus the 2x on the Pocket 3, though this is a digital crop, which means it will impact your image quality. Another thing to note is that, as you can see while I'm zooming out, there is a shift in image quality. For the first time, we now have internal storage on the Pocket 4, 107 gigabytes to be exact, and it's actually very fast, 800 megabits per second. How fast? Let's have a look of a comparison versus my Pocket 4 and the Pocket 3. The other thing is now we have Wi-Fi 6, so if you're on the go and transferring files, it is also faster. How fast? 90 megabits versus the previous 20 megabits. It also has ActiveTrack 7.0. In fact, everything you're seeing right now is being tracked through ActiveTrack. You're also able to register up to 3 faces, which makes tracking your subject in busy places much easier. Even if I walk through these corridors, you can see it's actively finding my face and registering through the ActiveTrack. The new ActiveTrack 7.0 has been a big improvement. As long as I am within the track range of the Pocket 3, I'm okay. However, every time I'm behind the pole, it loses both focus and the subject at the same time. I also want to test the distance of its tracking. Once again, the P4 wins, no matter if I'm behind moving objects or hide behind a pole. It's able to track and lock onto my face again. I did this test multiple times and the results were the same. Now, so why don't we take the chance and test how it performs at night? There is no log in night mode, but with the improved sensor, it should actually do a little bit better than the Pocket 3. We're about to enter into a relatively dark tunnel. This is all automatic. Also listen to the microphone. ActiveTrack is not available on the Pocket 3 during light mode, but it is on the P4. So look, if I move around, it's gonna track me and center me in the middle. Here is an extreme example shot in pitch dark. The only light visible were the street light outside the window. This is shot in night mode and you can only shoot 4K 30 FPS and you cannot shoot in log. If you look at the graph, you can see clearly that Pocket 4, both in the histogram and the picture, there are much less noise. There are more evidence of redness in the frame, whereas the P3 white balance is pretty spot on. Just by looking at the table, you can tell how white it is. This is obviously personal preference, but what do you think? Which do you prefer? My suggestion, if you want the best night shot, just shoot in log. There's also the introduction of 2 additional buttons underneath the screen. One is for zoom. The second one is customizable. For me, 1 click is capture mode, 2 click to convert video to photo, and 3rd click is my favorite, the ability to lock the gimbal. This is something I've always asked in the Pocket 3, and it's finally here. If you want to take static shots, definitely have this feature turned on. We also have clear image. You can take 7.6K at 16:9, 6K at 1:1. You have the option of shooting JPEG or RAW, which gives you more flexibility in post. One other improvement was that on the Pocket 3, we had an issue with continuous focus. You now have the option of continuous shifting, but focus on the registered face. At least this is an option where you can have it locked onto your subject. Battery has also improved slightly, over 1500 milliamps, which gives you a longer recording time versus the Pocket 3. Through my own testing, from 4K 30 FPS, I was getting close to 2.5 hours of continuous recording. Whereas on Pocket 3, I was stretching 1 hour and 30 minutes. You also have the ability of fast charge, around 30 watts. The screen is a little bit brighter now, 1000 nits. You can now shoot live photos without going into the app for an export. The grip and texture has been improved, giving you a better grip versus the Pocket 3. You also have gesture controls to activate tracking and record. Now, with all that good stuff out of the way, let's talk about the cons. So, what are some of the areas that I think the Pocket 4 can improve? Well, first of all, it's got built-in LUTs. Comes in a variety of different colors, but to be honest, I think they're pretty poorly done. In fact, they're not even connected to the same LUTs in the Mimo app. I much prefer the iPhone photographic styles where it preserves the skin tones while making adjustments to the actual image. So I would do shooting in log and then do color grading in post. Vertical shooting is still 3K. This is unfortunate, but hopefully in the newer Pro version, we should see an improvement. It now comes not only glamour, but also beautification. You can adjust the skin tone smoothness and also the temperature. Be careful with this. If you turn it up to full, you look someone not even AI will recognize. I will be giving you a full settings on how to use your Pocket 3 and Pocket 4 to maximize your photo and video quality. Gimbal rotation is still limited, just like the Pocket 3. Sometimes you do get a warning on your screen saying your gimbal has reached its limits. Unfortunately, this is a hard fix. They would have to redesign the whole mechanism and wiring, and I don't think this is likely to happen on the Pocket anytime soon. I feel like the positioning of the Pocket 4 is a little bit awkward. See, I have an iPhone 17 Pro. It does great photo, it shoots great log, rendition is great, and I can shoot in-body 4K 120 FPS on the Blackmagic cam. The only downside is it does not have a selfie screen, which helps with framing. Yes, the Pocket 4 does have some great features. Log, 4K 240 FPS, internal storage that's very fast, upgraded Wi-Fi, you've got a selfie screen, great gimbal for stabilization. But the thing is, a lot of this has been included in the Pocket 3. If you already have a Pocket 3, I don't see the point of justifying for an upgrade. It is a great camera for what it is and for the value that it brings. But there are alternatives and predecessors that does just as well for a lot less. If you don't have the Pocket, I think it makes a lot of sense to invest in a Pocket 4 now. But if you already have, then I would probably suggest wait for the Pro.